This amount of olive oil in your salad contains about 500 calories. And this is the chief reason why most Americans can't achieve their weight goal, is because despite your meal looking healthy, there is so much fatty foods coming into our meals, even at home, so that actually we always are in an excess calorie and therefore cannot achieve our weight goals. Today, what I'm going to show you is how for each one of the meals that you have, you can save hundreds of calories in a single day. And that amounts to more than 1 pound lost just by doing this smart move of cutting fatty foods and replacing them with leaner alternatives. Starting with breakfast, for example, bacon. Even though it is high in protein and super tasty, the fat in bacon is just disproportionate for the food it has. And a smart move you could do is to, for example, replace traditional bacon with turkey bacon. That alone will save you 100 to 150 calories and you won't trade off much in taste. You can do even better than that and going for quite leaner cuts of meats. Turkey breasts, that is very nice together with an egg on the side, or even bresaola, which is another dried meat that is very high in protein and very lean. In breakfast, there's a few other sort of fatty options sometimes we choose. Having butter on a spread of toast. First of all, neither the butter nor the toast will actually keep you full very much. But if you dive for a toast and go for a whole wheat version that at least has some fiber, which will help keep you full, one thing you could do is to replace the butter with either an avocado spread, which also adds a little bit of protein, or low-fat cream cheese, which gives you quite a similar feeling than the butter. At lunch, you've worked hard to get a lean salad with fiber sauces as well as a protein sauce that will keep you nicely full. However, you will destroy the effort by adding that olive oil into the salad just because it's healthy. 4 tablespoons of olive oil is about 500 calories. There is an alternative way to still get that oily feeling, but make it much more lean. In this cup, I've added less than a tablespoon of olive oil, so I'm under 100 calories roughly, and I've added instead vinegar, mustard, a little bit of water, and then if you want to make it still more juicy, you take some tomato that you squash and you sort of have a juice inside and you pour it in. That together will give you a fantastic vinaigrette feeling that is very, very lean. And a good option in case you need to eat your salad outside is you put it in a small Ziploc with you and you bring it to wherever you are. You can then buy a salad, but ditch the sauce that the place will give you. And by the way, that also holds true for any other sauce. Think ranch sauce, Caesar sauces, and all these sauces that look very, very sort of legitimate when you have them and you say it's just a little bit of it and it's kind of healthy fats. It just really destroys kind of most of the work you're putting in. For snacks, it's very tempting to snack on fatty foods like nuts, because we've all heard nuts are super healthy oils, protein, etc. Yes, that's all true, but it's also still a disproportionately fatty snack. That much of nuts, any nuts, will create around 250 calories. Now, nobody stops at that much of nuts. Once you start, it's very hard to stop because they're so addictive, of course. Therefore, it's not the most efficient way to have your snack. The real purpose of a snack is to just bridge between 2 main meals and keep you full in between them and boost your protein source. In order to achieve that goal, there are much leaner versions in terms of fats for your snacks. For example, Greek yogurt will be awesome, low-fat Greek yogurt, where you can add some fruits, etc. Then otherwise, you can have a protein shake with whey powder, zero fat inside, tons of proteins to keep you full, and you can add loads of fruits, milk, and other things that will work very well. Or if you really feel like a treat, there are a few protein bars that are high in protein, low in fat, and in added sugar. Barbells is one example, and there's a few other ones like that. And so any of these choices will keep your snacks at around 200 calories instead of 500-600 calories, give you a very good feeling of satisfaction, and help keep that calorie at the right level for your day. at dinner, it's usually the cooking method that is the issue when it comes to having too much fat and calories in your meal. So let's go through a few examples. Adding olive oil, the issue is when you start adding it with your hands and you lose count of them, and that adds hundreds of calories. Instead, you could either use an olive oil spray that throws in much less oil, and you'd be amazed how little oil you need to actually have that pan ready to cook. Or you could still pour a drop of olive oil and use a cloth to go around it and achieve the same thing. Then when it comes to, for example, cooking vegetable, very tempting to put some butter for that, really good feeling. Again, disproportionate amount of calories for the taste when you compare it to alternative. For example, you could either steam your vegetable, boil your vegetable, or pan fry them, and then add some lemon, garlic, herbs, and many other things that will give an amazing taste to your vegetables for way less calories. Then, if you want creaminess, of course, very tempting to go for the creamy sort of sauces. But again, there is an alternative that is way lower in calories. For example, if you take low-fat milk and yogurt, you could create a very creamy feeling, or low-fat marinara sauce that will give you the same results. And then once you start experimenting into the low-fat method of cooking your dinners, you'll discover many other avenues that are super tasty. One example for me is soy sauce and all the other Japanese sauces that go with it, whether it's fish sauce or others. You can cook super tasty food for very little, if not zero fat in your meal and achieve great results. And then, for example, also hot sauces, many other examples of sauces you could use in order to keep your meal extremely healthy, tasty, and low calorie. The examples I shared just scratch the surface in terms of the high fat foods that end up making it in our plate every day. I'd love you to take a moment to consider in your typical day, what are also examples of high fat foods you could either cut or replace with low fat alternatives to help achieve weight maintenance or weight loss. I'll give you some extra examples just to ponder on, including foods that are otherwise considered healthy. Think of having, when you have too much hummus, too much guacamole, or too much peanut or almond butter. Yes, all these foods are healthy, but when it comes to weight, they are not necessarily your friend unless you have a little bit of it. Then there is the not so healthy ones. For example, mayonnaise, cream cheese, all the sausages you add. All of these things usually add up. A completely different topic is what happens when you even take out foods or go to restaurants. There is usually a lot of fat in the methods of cooking, etc. That will be a topic for another day. But at least when it comes to home foods you can control, the topic today is really about considering that fat is the most expensive food you could eat when it comes to trying to achieve your weight goal. And so by being much more mindful and structured and intentional in your day around what are you going to eat and how can you minimize the fats involved, you are probably going to do the single biggest change in order to sustain your weight.